is a WUSF-TV production.
There's probably no controversy raging across the United States today in which most of us feel we have a personal interest in the fight over smoking. Smokers feel it's a free country. They can smoke if they want. Non-smokers feel that the smoke is hazardous to their health and impinges on their civil rights. It's a multi-billion-dollar industry involving hundreds of thousands of jobs and tax dollars. The government is caught in the middle, the Surgeon General turning in report after report of smoking's health hazards, but the Treasury desperately needing the millions of dollars in taxes the industry generates. What's the latest in the fight? Well, to help us understand the industry's point of view, we have Pam Jones with us. She's a spokesperson for the Tobacco Institute based in Washington, D.C. The Institute is a non-profit organization comprised of companies in the tobacco industry. Now, before we get started, Pam, I've got to confess, I don't smoke. Now, I'm not a violent anti-smoker, but it does get on my nerves. What about you? Do you smoke?
I do smoke. It's not a job requirement, but I do smoke.
Apart from the financial advantages, I gotta have one of your pamphlets here. I won't go through them all, but it's just a very fancy pamphlet listing all the financial benefits of the tobacco industry and the jobs and the taxes it generates, and especially for Florida, we've got a whole breakdown here. Apart from that, let's put aside that for a minute. What's good about smoking? What's good about tobacco?
We don't hold forth any benefits from smoking. Our position, to get real basic, is just that every adult has the right to decide for him or herself whether or not to smoke. We don't feel that the government has the right to tell somebody that they cannot smoke. It's a habit in which adults have indulged for hundreds and hundreds of years. Goes all the way back to pre-Columbus, really. The Indians in this country were smoking before Columbus ever got here, or any of the other explorers ever got to our shores. And it's been going on since then. We don't feel that the government has the right to step in and say, hey, you can't do that anymore.
So really it's a fight over government regulation or over-regulation.
Exactly.
But the government's kind of caught in the middle. They have a Surgeon General and a health department. They also have an agriculture department, and they're just kind of fighting here. Where would you say, as a member of the Tobacco Institute, where would you say the line should be drawn?
I think that the way we have it right now, with the Surgeon General's warning on each package of cigarettes, on every cigarette advertisement, in the print media, on billboards, etc., that says, warning, the Surgeon General has determined, etc. I think that that is the correct role of government, and I don't think you'll find anybody in the industry who will disagree with that. The government does have the role, the right, the obligation to advise its citizens of things which they feel may be dangerous to the health of those citizens. And I think as long as we stay just with that warning label, I think that the government has fulfilled its obligation. I think to go any further with it, and we've seen drives by members of various anti-smoking groups to try and legislate segregation of smokers and non-smokers. I think that that's going too far.
But given the medical hazards of smoking that they've found so far, I have a copy of I hope it's the latest report of the Surgeon General. I think it is.
There's one since then.
This is the latest I got from a specialist in the field, and this is what he gave me. Given the health hazards of smoking, not just the smoker, but the person in the elevator with him, or the person on the bus, or the person in the car right alongside with him. And according to this, there are dangers.
Have you really read it, or just the introduction?
I haven't read it in toto, but I've gone through it.
If you read the studies in this Surgeon General's report, in any of the Surgeon General's reports that have been issued since 1964, if you actually read the research papers, not the welcoming letter or whatever you want to call it that each Surgeon General writes, because actually the Surgeon General has absolutely nothing to do with the compilation of that book.
Right, it's the health.
It's done by the Public Health Service. But the opening few pages are always by the current Surgeon General. If you read through and you read the research, every piece of research that's in there says smoking may be, might be, could possibly be linked to this or that disease. At no point do they say And can they scientifically prove that smoking causes any disease? They never have been able to, not since 1964, and they still can't today.
What about the research that they've done that shows that children of smokers have more bronchial problems, asthma problems? I mean, that would, I think, you know, we can argue studies and whatever all we want, but I think what the Surgeon General says in his introduction and in the beginning pages of this is the preponderance of evidence points to the fact that there are problems, that it's not, that it's more leans in the direction of problems with smoking than not having problems.
Well, studies that have been done on children of smokers have found two things. One is that their respiratory problems tend to be related to the problems which their parents have and had as children, more than to anything else. Mm-hmm. And also, another study, and it's been done, it's basically the same study, it's been done in 3 different places. It's been done in England, in Wales, and in this country by Johns Hopkins.
Mm-hmm.
And it showed that children who live in homes where they use gas for cooking and heating have more respiratory problems than children who live in homes where electricity is used. And there's a much higher correlation between the use of gas and respiratory problems than there is between parental smoking and respiratory problems.
So is the Tobacco Institute taking the position that non-smokers in the same room or near smokers do not have any health effects?
At this point, there haven't been any that have been scientifically established. There have been a number of studies done. This seems to be the new popular item these days.
Yeah, because I'll be honest with you, because as a non-smoker, it irritates the devil out of me.
Yeah,
we will, not only from the health point of view, but from the point of view that I come in the morning to work, and I've just washed my hair, I've got on clean clothes, and blah, 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 blah. You know, I'm ready to go, and I walk in, and the first thing I meet is a group of smokers, and then I smell like I've been out at a nightclub all night long, and I resent it. But I also am very concerned about the health point of view.
Well, we have this problem that has cropped up within the last 10 years when we've seen this anti-smoking movement on the fore, coming to the fore, and it's kind of interesting because if you meet some of the people that are involved in these groups, and if you're my age and you think back to high school and college, they're the same people that would have been out in the streets marching against the Vietnam War at that point.
Well, I think that's a little, I didn't march against the Vietnam War, but I would be one of the people.
Well, I'm talking about people who belong to groups like ASH and GASP, which you probably have not heard of.
Yeah, I've heard of GASP.
You have heard of GASP, yeah, that seems to be the best known. ASH is actually based in Washington, and it was founded by a gentleman who is professor of law at George Washington University Law School. And that ASH stands for Action on Smoking and Health. GASP is Group Against Smokers Pollution. These people have been known to actually advocate violence. They have told non-smokers, there's a man in Maryland who belongs to GASP and who has these little aerosol spray cans that he gives out to to non-smokers and says, if you meet somebody that's smoking, spray this in their face and they'll choke.
So the strategy seems to be, well, we can't say anything good about tobacco, so let's attack the groups that are attacking the tobacco industry.
What we're trying to
do...
what we're trying to do is trying to get smokers and non-smokers to be more considerate of one another, each to try and understand the other's position. And I think that you'll find today, more than any time in the past, smokers are much more aware of the fact that by lighting a cigarette, they may be bothering somebody.
Right.
And I think the preponderance of smokers, if they're with people they do not know, ask before lighting a cigarette. And I know for a fact that almost anybody who smokes, I'm not going to say everybody, because there's always going to be somebody who's hardline on either side.
Some jerk out there.
Yeah, you know, but almost anybody who smokes, if they're asked politely to extinguish their cigarette, will do so. And I think that's really what we've got to work from. We've got to get people to quit this, you know, butting heads business. That's ridiculous. It's never solved anything before. It's not going to solve anything now.
Okay, but given the preponderance of evidence, which is there, I mean, I don't think you can deny the fact that smoking is dangerous. I talked to Dr. Ross Corey, who is in charge of the lung cancer or lung disease and smoking over at the Tampa General Hospital the other day, and he said, regardless of what members of the Tobacco Institute and their lobbying group will tell you, it's proven beyond any reasonable doubt, and I'll quote here because I wrote it down, I talked to him on the phone, The major cause of lung cancer is smoking. It's the primary cause of emphysema. 1/3 to 1/4 of all hospital admissions are definitely related to heart disease and hypertension. And he said we almost never see anyone with lung disease who isn't a smoker. Now, granted, people can have lung disease and not smoke, but he said, and I think that the percentage was 85% or something like that, a huge percentage of people who have lung disease, who have emphysema, or who have any kind of breathing problems at all are smokers. Now, of course, you've got the asbestos and all the worker-related diseases in there, too, but the large majority of the people smoke. Given that, shouldn't we, as a country, instead of saying, well, we should let those people smoke and those who don't, we don't know whether it's going to hurt us non-smokers or not, but they should smoke if they want to, shouldn't we work together to try to maybe wipe out that industry and not and make them suffer any kind of financial losses? But I don't know if it's even possible, but shouldn't we work toward
You're talking about prohibition, which they tried in the 20s.
I don't mean legislate and say you can't do it, but with
That's the only way you're going to do it.
With information, I mean, with a lack of government cooperation in the industry, couldn't you gradually work away from that?
All right. First of all, what he said cannot be scientifically supported, okay? According to American Cancer Society figures, 98% of all heavy smokers, those who smoke 2 packs a day or more, never develop lung cancer. The incidence of lung cancer among non-smokers is on the increase. Right now, it's about 1 in every 4 new cases that's diagnosed. I did a show yesterday in Jacksonville, and it was a live radio show where we had phone-in. And I had a gentleman call, and he said, I have terminal lung cancer. I have never smoked. I have had 3 very good friends of mine die of lung cancer. They never smoked. We all worked in the shipping industry. Jacksonville.
Well, yes, but there's asbestos problems related to the shipping industry, so that can be traced directly to there.
All right, but if you sit back and you look at the demographics of smokers, the vast majority of people who smoke are blue-collar workers. Nobody ever stops to take into consideration the occupational exposures that these people have. Do you know that there are actually some occupations where people who smoke are at less risk of lung cancer than people who don't smoke?
Yeah, I think it was mentioned in here.
Yeah,
but it also says in here approximately 70% of chronic obstructive lung disease deaths are attributable to cigarette smoke.
They cannot
I do not think you're going to find a person out on the street who actually would believe what the tobacco industry tries to say.
They cannot support that scientifically. There is no way they can support it scientifically. Here's another example, lung cancer, because that seems to be the biggie. That's the one that everybody immediate associates with cigarette smoking.
Lung cancer, heart disease.
Well, heart disease is the #1 killer in this country, regardless of whether you smoke or not. I mean, that's just plain simple fact.
So we should not worry about it. We shouldn't try to decrease it.
No, what I'm saying is that you can't say it's caused by cigarette smoking. If people who have never smoked get disease, and you're saying smoking causes that disease, then why do other people who don't smoke get it, and why do other people who smoke not get it?
How successful are these anti-smoking campaigns?
Not very.
Is the number of smokers
It's
declining?
increased. There are more smokers in this country today than ever before. The percentage of the adult population that smokes has decreased a bit. That's because the population is larger. Right now, it's somewhere between 55 and 60 million adults who smoke in this country. Last year, 640 billion cigarettes were sold in the United States.
Now, where is this increase coming from?
I would assume that it's coming from new smokers, because we have seen the increase.
Teenagers?
No, teenage smoking, according to the Department of Education and figures released in either February or March of this year, show that teenage smoking is at its lowest point in the last 10 years, and teenagers are smoking pot and drinking more than they're smoking cigarettes.
What about all the alarm we've been hearing lately, and I've been reporting on the news lately about women, the increase in teenage female smoking, and it's going to show up 50 years down the road. The problem is that this any kind of disease does not show up right away. It shows up when you're 50 or 60. That's when lung disease shows up.
Yeah, and the interesting thing is that that's when it shows up whether you've smoked or not. It has no relation to whether or not you've ever smoked as to what age the onset of lung disease occurs.
Right, but if you smoked in your teens and you were a heavy smoker then, if you're going to have lung disease because of that smoking, it would not necessarily
Yeah, but if you've never smoked and you're going to have lung disease, that's when it's going to show up too.
Right.
So that doesn't prove, that's another strike against saying smoking causes that disease.
I don't think that proves that at all.
Why not?
Because just because it both shows up at the same time, that's saying that
Well, Why would the people who never smoked have the disease, have the onset of the disease at the same time as people who have smoked for years?
The way the cells are, the way it
Well, then it was
shows
going
up
to
on the
happen
lung?
whether they smoked or not.
Okay. We'll drop that subject for a few minutes. All right. Let's see. What about, there are some things that the Tobacco Institute or the tobacco industry could do, though. I mean, what about the low-tar cigarettes?
Low-tar, low-nicotine cigarettes are over 50% of the market now. They went over 50% last year. Right? I think it's something like 54, 55% and increasing. And those cigarettes were produced in response to consumer demand. You know, people said, we want low-tar, low-nicotine cigarettes, and so the companies started making them.
Now, is that showing a decrease in health problems was related to the low-tar?
There hasn't been any proof yet that the higher-tar nicotine cigarettes caused any health problems. So, of course, there hasn't been any.
Well, according to the Surgeon General's report, it says that low-tar cigarettes, and I can find it real quickly if you want.
They say in there that they're less harmful.
They're less
quote.
harmful, quote, if they do not change the degree, the amount of smoke taken in, that kind of thing. Smoke more cigarettes, that kind of thing.
Now, see, that was in January of last year.
Right.
Now, about 2 months ago, 6 weeks to 2 months ago, there was a cancer congress held out in Seattle, Washington, and they said it doesn't make any difference. They're not any quote-unquote safer, and that's their statement, not mine. So, you see, they wanted...
I don't know, but this just says there's no way to tell, because when at this point, we haven't got the studies to tell whether the low tar has made any difference.
They don't have the studies to tell.
But it says, let's see, we have reviewed all current scientific evidence and concluded that the search for less hazardous cigarettes has not yet yielded a product which can be considered safe. The person who changes to a cigarette with lower measured yields may reduce certain hazards of smoking, but the benefits will be small compared to the benefits of quitting entirely. They also said that the studies that they do and the research that's done with machines is different than the research done with humans, and you can't really tell.
You can't do research with humans.
It's totally different.
All right, I want to jump back for a minute, okay? Because we're
We're stuck on this.
Yeah, we're arguing the same point over and over again. But I want to go back to the lung cancer thing, and I want to tell you 2 studies that have been done, 2 experiments. Well, they've been done repeatedly, but animal experimentation, inhalation experimentation. Now, don't stop and tell me that animals aren't humans. I know that. But through animal inhalation experimentation, using tobacco smoke, they had never, ever been able to produce or have the animals come down with, contract lung cancer. However, the same experiments using industrial dusts have produced human-type lung cancer in dogs. So, you know, that right there has to answer or ask another question. If the industrial dusts through inhalation do cause lung cancer and tobacco smoke doesn't, then how valid is the claim that smoking causes lung cancer? Now, we're not saying that smoking is good for you. We're not saying that it's not going to hurt you. What we're saying is nobody knows for sure. We need so much more research done. And if everybody just accepts what has come to be I don't know, the general public opinion, I guess. And if you just accept that as fact, then the danger that lies in that is that people are not going to continue to do research, and you're never going to get the answers to the questions.
I think as long as the tobacco industry feels like that it may be able to somehow partially prove its point that, oh, it's not as bad as you all think it is, that they're going to continue research if nobody else does, and they've got the money to do it.
Well,
you guys are a powerful, well-financed lobby.
Well, I'd sure like to have some of the money.
Well, so would I.
But the industry sponsors independent research. I'll explain how it's done, because they're really, the only stipulation when these people file their grant applications is that the research must deal either with specific smoking and health issues or with the etiology of some of these diseases. In other words, how does a normal cell become a cancerous cell? Nobody knows. Nobody can tell you how it happens. And if they're going to do research on that, then they're eligible to apply for a grant. There is a group called the Council for Tobacco Research. It's a group of independent scientists and doctors from various medical schools and universities. They meet, I believe it's twice a year in New York City. They review these grant applications. They decide which grants should be funded. The industry gives them the money. They fund these people, and they are free to publish their studies no matter what the outcome may be. And through that, excuse me, through CTR, and also through some direct funds, like for ongoing projects. There's a project at Washington University Medical School in St. Louis that's been going on for about 12 years now. And the money for that does not go through CTR. It comes directly from the industry.
How much money, though, do you spend on outside independent, quote, research and
More than
money to promote, or not promote, as you guys are very sensitive about saying, but money to present the industry side of the smoking controversy?
Okay, the industry through CTR and through the ongoing grants has funded more than $104 million in scientific research. That is more than all the voluntary health organizations combined. The only group that has outspent the tobacco industry on this thing is the U.S. government through its various agencies and the institutes of health.
But if the tobacco industry had its way, the U.S. government would not be spending all this money.
No, we want the research done.
I thought you wanted less government regulation and less government
We
involvement.
want the research done. I'm not saying we want regulation. I'm saying we want research because it's obviously...
And what if they came up with, yes, it is definitely harmful, we can prove it, then what would the industry do?
I have no earthly idea, and nobody else does either. See, when you sit down, you start talking about
They're
cigarette
not
smoke.
going to cut their own throat. I mean, they like make lots of money.
Well, okay, cigarette smoke contains something like 4,000 different components. So you're going to have to figure out what it is in the cigarette smoke that causes the disease.
Yeah, because
and then I would assume they would try and
it's
figure
not
out...
just the tar, it's the carbon monoxide, it could be
Yeah,
this,
see,
that, and the other.
tar
It's
is-
not just the nicotine or the tar or
Right.
whatever.
Tar is a very artificial substance because it's not... The way they collect tar is by running smoke through a supercooled filtering system. And they run it through several times to take out all the particulate matter. Now, that's not the way somebody smokes a cigarette.
Right.
So that's kind of an artificial reading on that because you don't know really what happens to the smoke once it goes into your lungs, or, you know, what stays there, what doesn't stay there, what comes back out. The carbon monoxide doesn't last very long. The effects of that don't last very long. The nicotine...
Well, they're not sure. They said they had to do more research
Well,
on the effects of
the carbon monoxide, they call it carboxyhemoglobin,
Right.
okay?
Yeah.
And that's from the carbon monoxide.
Glad
when
you pronounced
smoke.
that, and I did.
I've learned all kinds of wonderful medical words with this job.
Right.
But that, they have found that the level goes back to normal within 10 minutes after you finish a cigarette, as a general rule. Nicotine is very quickly metabolized out of your system. By the time you finish a cigarette, the nicotine that you inhaled on the first puff of that cigarette has already been metabolized out of your system.
Wait a minute. I'm not sure what this means here, but it says, I underlined it earlier, it said, the factors that influence the carbon monoxide yield are closely related to the manufacturing process, therefore may vary somewhat independently of tar yield. In addition, the absorption of carbon monoxide is more dependent on depth of inhalation than the absorption of nicotine, and if the use of lower tar products results in a compensatory increase in depth of inhalation, smoker exposure to carbon monoxide may remain unchanged or actually increased. The reality of this concern is borne out by those studies that show no lowering of carboxyhemoglobin levels in smokers who switch to lower tar cigarettes.
Well, all right, there's something to what they say about the carboxyhemoglobin, because one of the reasons that cigarettes have been able to be made to have lower tar and lower nicotine levels is that a lighter paper has to be used so that it burns more quickly. And the tobacco is not packed as tightly, as densely as it would be in a higher tar, higher nicotine cigarette. And therefore, there's so much more oxygen in there, it burns that much faster, and that would be the carboxyhemoglobin. That would lead to the heightened levels of carboxyhemoglobin. But as I said, it's very quickly metabolized. It doesn't last very long at all. And, you know, within 10 minutes, 10 to 15 minutes after you finish a cigarette, it's back to normal. The level is back to normal.
Okay, we're running out of time, but I did want to make one point about the low tar cigarettes. The one thing that the industry could do, which I assume it's not doing now. I don't smoke, haven't looked at a pack, and I should have before I came in here. But it said that because of the low tar cigarettes now, they have to increase the flavoring additives to the cigarette. And what they would like to see done is the industry to label cigarette packages with what the additives are, because some of those additives could be carcinogens.
Yeah, okay. Well, I can tell you what's happened with that. And there's been a lot that's happened within the last year, and especially within the last 6 months.
Okay.
The manufacturers for very obvious reasons, are not real crazy about the idea of giving away their recipes for each
Right.
specific brand, and they don't want their competitors to get it. I mean, Philip Morris would have a fit if anybody else got the formula for Marlboro, because that's the best-selling cigarette in the world.
Right.
So what they've done is they've been in negotiation with the Surgeon General's office, and they have worked out a way to get a list of the additives. Any additive that is used in 3 or more brands of cigarettes will be submitted to the Surgeon General through our chairman, through the chairman of the Tobacco Institute, and he will guard the proprietary interests of the companies.
So it's still sort of...
Well, it's in the process.
That's a little
now.
way, but it's still
Well, no,
kind of
they'll never
leaves it up to the industry to tell people what is in their cigarettes.
They're not going to tell people what are in their cigarettes. It's going to be up to the Surgeon General to decide if the list of flavorings that he has given are acceptable. And in Great Britain, about 4 years ago, there was a government committee called the Hunter Committee. And the companies over there did the same thing. They gave them a list of 300 additives that they use over there.
Mm-hmm.
And everyone was accepted. And it's things like cocoa and citrus peelings and citrus flavorings, and some liqueurs are used. And that goes all the way back to the Indians. The Indians used to flavor their tobacco with citrus.
Mm-hmm.
So it's basically a list of things that you see every day in food products and things.
So nothing really hazardous.
It wouldn't appear to be.
Okay. Real quickly, we've got 2 minutes left. Tell me a little bit about the industry itself, what exactly it does besides research and having you over here on our program. What else does it do?
Well, we act as the information arm
Do you
for the
lobby
tobacco
Congress?
industry. We do have 3 lobbyists with the Tobacco Institute. Some of the companies may have lobbyists on their own, but the majority of the lobbying that's done in Congress is done by the legislators from the tobacco states, a la Jesse Helms.
Right, I worked for a Virginia congressman.
Right. So you know how that game
Yes.
goes. And we also have lobbyists in all 50 states. They're not full-time for us. Obviously, we wouldn't have enough work for them to be full-time for us, but we
Right.
do have lobbyists in a grassroots organization throughout the 50 states.
Okay, now I want to know a little bit about you. You're no stranger to the Bay Area and no stranger to the University of South Florida.
No, I'm not. I'm no stranger to this studio, as a matter of fact. I took a couple of courses in this studio, TV production courses. I graduated from South Florida in '74, and I had worked...
Got an interesting background, too.
Yeah, I had worked in sports here at the station, then I became a sports writer for the school paper. Then I was a newsie at a television station in Fort Myers for about 4 months, and then I got a sports job at WFLA. Was there for a little over 2 years, right? And went from there to the New York Yankees, courtesy of Mr. Steinbrenner.
That's got to be interesting.
Oh, it was fascinating. It really was. It was a fun 3 years. I really enjoyed it. Made some terrific friends that'll last forever.
But how did you get from sports to smoking, to tobacco, excuse me?
A blind ad in Broadcasting Magazine. A friend of mine said if I wanted to expand my background, I had to get out of sports and do something else. And I don't know if he had quite this much of a change in mind, but this is how it wound up.
Well, expand as you did, and we hope we expanded your knowledge. It's a safe bet that the more than 50 million smokers are not going to kick their habit very easily or quickly, and it's also safe to assume that sensitive non-smokers are going to continue their fight in eradicating those little white sticks. Thanks for being here.
Thank you.
And thank you for being with us.